What do we think? This is the new Audi Q6, and it is a very confusing car to me, and I'm gonna let you know exactly why. I don't think, specifically the interior, I'm not understand what Audi did there. So we're gonna have a look at this car, talk about the spec and tech, have a look at the front, side, and rear, compare the Q6 to the SQ6, and I wanna hear from you if you can actually see any differences between the Q6 and the SQ6, because I certainly can't. And last but not least, from front, side, rear, and then the interior, which we also definitely need to talk about in this video. So, but before we jump into Photoshop here, let's have a look at the spec and tech and what this car is all about. So what has Audi done here with the 2025 Audi Q6 and the SQ6 e-tron? This is an electric vehicle, obviously. Audi's new electric SUVs ushers in a new tech for the brand as they target the heart of the luxury market. It will go on sale later this year, with the EV being similarly sized to the brand's best-selling Q5 SUV. It looks bigger for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. The wheelbase is a little longer. It will only offer two-motor all-wheel drive configurations with up to 510 horsepower. You have an 800-volt electrical architecture and 94.4 kilowatt-hour battery. Should make for an EPA range of about 300 miles, which seems to be the standard these days. So this is the first Audi models to be built on the Volkswagen Group's scalable premium platform electric platform. They put platform two times here, PPE. The first EVs to be produced at Audi's Ingolstadt plant in Germany, and the first examples of the brand's new cockpit layout and electrical architecture. Now, cockpit here. Well, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to the interior here for this Audi. So the European market examples, they do get the matrix LED headlights and dynamic OLED taillights, which can apparently communicate with other motorists to signal emergencies and stuff. But we're not going to get that here in the US because of federal regulations, which means that we only get headlights that you can customize if you want to. We don't get the dynamic high beam functions, for example, and the taillights will only display animations when the vehicle is parked. So thank you, US regulations, for making this a much boring car than it could have been. Now, the interior here. I'm just gonna read the spec and tech and then let you know my honest opinion about the interior when we take it to Photoshop. So you have a squared off steering wheel, a new dash layout dominated by two vibrant OLED displays, a curved 11.9-inch digital gauge cluster, and a 14.5-inch center touchscreen, and an optional 10.9-inch touchscreen for the passenger that can display video. So there's a screen bonanza going on in the interior of the Q6. You also have a new AI voice control that can learn a driver's preferences and patterns, head-up display featuring augmented reality and navigation. As you know, I'm a fan of that specific technology. You also have a wide range of driver assistance tech will be available for the Q6 and the SQ6, with cruise control, rear parking assistance, lane departure warning, automated front emergency braking, and driver distraction and drowsiness warnings, all standard. I'm good with just ABS brakes on my cars, but that's just me. It feels like we're just moving into this era of computerized cars, which I am absolutely not a fan of personally. A single motor rear-wheel drive version will enter the US later on, but it will initially launch with two motors and all-wheel drive. So 422 horsepower for the Q6 and 483 for the SQ6. Then you have these boost functions, which boost the SQ6, for example, from 483 up to 510 horsepower. I would like to have those 510 horsepower available at all times. 0 to 60 for the Q6 is about 5 seconds. So we have this situation now where we have EVs having a lot of horsepower, like insane. We couldn't imagine these horsepowers in an old school, for example, first generation Audi Q5. It would just be ridiculous to have 422 horsepower in that. But since these are EVs, they also have a lot of weight to them, and weight is the #1 reason that ruins the driving experience and the nimbleness of a car. So we need to have these type of powers to have a decent performance out of these EVs. And range, as I said, at least 300 miles. SQ6 will do 0 to 60 in about 4.2 seconds, which is not bad at all, but it's still a very, very heavy car. Fast charging up to 270 kilowatts. You can add more than 150 miles of range in about 10 minutes in ideal conditions. Keep in mind, wheel sizes range from 19 to 21 inches. And having a look at this package here, still, I don't know if this is the Q6 or the SQ6 because they look exactly identical. I'm going to compare both of them in Photoshop in a minute. I'm not sure if these are probably the 20-inch wheels. Look pretty good, but I would probably go with the 21-inch just to fill out the wheelhouses properly. And you can expect the Q6 e-tron to start around 66 grand and the SQ6 about $72,000. Now, with that said, let's jump in to Photoshop, compare the SQ6 and the Q6, and let me know here if you can see any differences. Which one do you think is the kind of the brake pads here give it away? But if you disregard the brake, if we just make this black down here, let's just pop in some black in this area and look at these two cars. Do you see any differences between these two? Could you tell which one is the Q6 and which one is the SQ6? I definitely cannot, because they look exactly the same. And this is very sad, because when I grew up, the S cars of Audi and the RS4, the B5 RS4, just a magical car. And compare that to a normal A4 Avant. It was a completely different beast of a machine, not just in the performance, but also the styling. It felt like Audi put some effort into making the S and the RS cars special, and they really felt special compared to the boring normal, you know, A3s, A4s, and whatever you had back in the day. But here, literally, it feels like they put in zero effort to make the S models more special than the Q6. So up top, I'm gonna reveal it to you now if you haven't figured it out yet. Up top, we do have the Q6. Down here, we do have the SQ6. Now, the styling overall in the front end, we do have a covered up grille, which is still a very Audi-like grille, as you can see with this outline here, this framing for it. And I do think Audi is doing a great job turning their internal combustion engine versions, the Q5 in this example, into EVs, and still have them feel internal combustion-ish in their styling and their proportions of the front end and the side view as well. And I think this is still a good looking car, but have a look at this. We do have the trend. I'm gonna try to keep it zoomed out so you can see both cars at the same time. These headlights now, and these are configurable, so you can do whatever. I think you have 8 different options of how you can arrange these LEDs in here to give a certain expression, I guess. And then you have the trend of the last 5 years has come to Audi now as well. And I'm not sure if I am a fan of this, because we're going to have this in the Q9 as well. I made a redesign of or a design of the Q9 based on the spy photos on the Sketch Monkey channel, which I think is going to look very, very similar to this. We have the bumper headlights down here. Now, why am I not a fan of the bumper headlights? So here's the thing. Headlights of a car are the eyeballs of a car, and they are the most important feature in the front end that gives a personality to the car. And I always go back to BMW in the golden era, the E39 M5. If you just look at the headlights, it has this expression that if you walk up to that car, you can feel the confidence in the front end just because of these headlights and the kidneys in the middle. And it just gives the car a personality and life, in my opinion. That's what I think headlights do. And look at the headlights these days. They are hidden, almost like we don't really want to have the headlights in the front end. They're even tinted black here, so you can't see that these are the headlights unless they're on. The benefits of this is you can, as they did here, Audi took it to a whole new level with 8 different configurable patterns, is you can create your identity based on the LEDs, the daytime run lights that sits above the headlights. Obviously, you have a lot more freedom because they don't really have a function to them except for some styling features. The main function sits, of course, in the headlights further down low. But I want to combine these two features. I want to have the identity, the personality, and the functionality in one single unit, which is a traditional headlight unit. Like the designers are ashamed to design headlights these days. We do have a big intake further down low. We can go to the Audi Q6 down here, which has this nice silver color to it. We have a big intake in the lower section. Still looks exactly the same as the Q6. These wheels, even the wheels don't look special for the SQ7 in this case. They look almost, I feel like the wheels on the Q6 look more sporty than the ones that we have down here, which look like typical EV wheels for the SQ6. It just doesn't make sense to me. I wish they put more effort into making the S models special and have some pride in their heritage of their S models, Audi, and bring back those polished aluminum caps for the side mirrors and some more aggressive styling for the S models. Here are the side views of both these two cars. We have the SQ6 at the bottom and the Q6 at the top. One detail that I think we're going to see a lot more of in the new A6 e-tron as well is this design feature here at the bottom with this carved out portion that is black. This sort of feels like a cut in the body, like someone took a knife or sword and just cut the lower section and exposed what's underneath the bodywork with this black piece down here. It looks pretty good, I would say, because we do have a line flow continuing here and then going in to the bumper as well. So we have some nice a nice line down here that cuts through the rear axle and have a connection to the rear end. There will be a Sportback version of this car later on, but I'm pretty sure I'm still going to prefer this one, because in 99% of the cases when it comes to coupe SUVs, I always prefer the normal SUV, unless we're talking about a Porsche Cayenne. It also feels like Audi is going a lot more sharp with their lines these days. Look at how sharp these carved-out portions over the fenders are. And in a way, it's starting to feel a little over-stylized for me. I prefer the more subtle Da Silva era of Audi. For example, I made a review of the best looking Audi RS5 on the Sketch Monkey channel as well, and I do prefer that design over the previous RS5, and it feels like we're just going more and more, adding more and more lines and creases into the body of Audi, and it's starting to be borderline over stylized, even though the proportions of this I think is one of the best looking proportions when it comes to an EV SUV, because it looks like this could in fact be an internal combustion engine car with these type of proportions, and that we could fit an engine underneath there. So let's look at the rear end. You know, the RS models and the S models always had these big, beautiful, oval exhaust pipes of Audis, but we can't really do that since this is an EV, obviously. So what we could have done here, we could have made the SQ6 have at least put a bit more of an aggressive diffuser down here with some fins or something to make it more special than the Q6, because now the diffuser is an exact copy from the Q6, so I'm not entirely sure what the point is. But I do like the taillight graphics here that we have. We have also another trend, which is this light bar, which I don't think Audi has had up until the trend started a few years back, and I think it looks like it's coming back now. Audi has fallen victim to this trend as well. But other than that, I do like the taillight internal pieces, and as I said in the article, these are also animated and you can do whatever you want to fill around with the animations on the LED taillights. Overall, it still looks like a very good looking car, but I do think these creases that we have going into the body, this is just too much. This is not subtle, it's too aggressive for an Audi, and this might suit other brands, maybe Asian, South Korean brands, this type of styling more. But when it comes to German design, I want to have clean proportions, clean surfaces with a couple of sharp key lines in the body. That is what I'm looking for in German designs, but it feels like that era is probably gone for now, at least. Now, last but not least, this interior here. So up top we do have the Q6, down low we do have the SQ6, and what has Audi done here? This is, again, a trend that I was hoping that Audi would not fall for, but eventually they got caught in this trend as well, and that is, of course, to remove anything that has to do with a proper gauge cluster with a housing for it, like they had in their current models up from 2019 up to 2023. Audi had one of the best, across the entire lineup, one of the best interiors of any car brand. But now that is unfortunately completely gone, because have a look at this. Q6 interior, let's focus on the SQ6 down here, which looks a little cooler with the darker colors and also this red LED or ambient lighting that we have going on here. So we have the big screen in the middle. Now we don't have, gone is the beautiful gauge cluster that Audi used to have up until 2023. I guess this is going to be the new standard here for all Audis. And then look at the infotainment screen. What is going on with this area here? I'm not sure why they extruded this piece to have this weird curvature to it. And the screen actually ends right here. And then we have this big plastic piece sticking out. It would be maybe understandable if you had some connection to any other endpoints of any other screens in the interior. But if we have a look at this screen, the passenger screen, the option one, look at this corner. This is extremely sharp, like a knife edge in this corner, which has zero connection to the endpoint of this screen. So this interior to me is like absolutely not an upgrade from the previous generation or the current generations of Audis. And in addition to that, Audi also used to have a separate screen down here for the climate control settings. They weren't tactile or physical buttons, but it was a dedicated screen just for the climate control settings. Now everything has been transferred up to this area. And what I think this is also a pretty sad trend, because everything is starting to look exactly the same. There is no creativity these days, specifically when it comes to the interiors. Every single interior has this big curved screen, which they call luxury, but to me this does not feel luxurious. It feels way cheaper than the previous generation that they had in Audis, with the housing, but still a digital gauge cluster, which you can customize however you want, but it still had a separate unit for it, and it looks way more classy to have that than to have this type of interior. And then there is this new steering wheel design. I'm trying to not be too negative here, but I feel like we're moving in, maybe you've got the hint now that I think we're maybe moving in the wrong direction when it comes to car design, both interior and exterior designs. Maybe I'm just getting old, but I don't like this this steering wheel either. It just looks too flat. It doesn't look sporty at all, and I do prefer the older steering wheels that look way sportier than this. Even though this is not a bad looking steering wheel, we do have a flat bottom here. You can see we have the S logo here. I'm not sure if we have the S on, no, we have a completely different steering wheel on the normal Q6. So I guess comparing between these two, the SQ6 steering wheel, now that I see what the normal one Q6 looks like, this looks way better than the Q6 steering wheel, but I still prefer the previous generation interior 100% over what Audi has done here with this Q6. I'm not sure if this is going to be the new norm, that we just reducing styling of, specifically talking about the interiors these days, until we get to a point where we just have a windshield that has a pop-up head-up display where you can adjust whatever, and then you just have an automated voice commands, and there is not a single button in the interiors. To me, that sounds very boring, and it feels like they took away all the craftsmanship of designers when they designed these new interiors. And I feel like it's going to be a lot more minimalistic than this before we, if ever, go back to more of a craftsman-like feeling for the interiors. We have beautiful sculptures housing this technology that we now have in today's cars.